Hello, friends, and I welcome you all for this session of us in which we'll be communicating with someone who is much more famous as a kind of who has learned a lot in his life and has gathered all his learnings in a book. So let's start interacting about him. Let's start. Vasant Agarwal is the director at Discover My Mind, a life skills platform, and the author of several books, including The Complete Guide to Emotional Intelligence, Parenting with Emotional Intelligence, The Accidental Addict, and The Power of Positive Thinking. He's a speaker at international conferences across India, a director in the Indian School Counselor Association, and a senior advisor to the International Training Federation. Presently, he's on a mission to help people utilize emotional intelligence as a means for academic success and mental health. So you can visit him on www.discovermymind.com to know more about him. तो चलिए आज मिलते हैं हम वसंत अग्रवाल सर जी से, जो कि इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के बारे में बातें करते हैं और इन्होंने इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के ऊपर बहुत सारे रिसर्च किया है और सिर्फ इंडिया में नहीं, बाहर रह के भी इन्होंने बहुत सारे कंट्रीज में जहां इन्होंने अपने प्रोफेशंस मतलब अपना जो जीवन है वो यापन इंडिया के बाहर ही किया है. एंड ही हैज गैदर्ड ऑल द इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस एंड हाउ टू हैंडल इमोशन. सो लेट्स वेलकम होल हार्टेडली Vasant sir. So sir, I would just request you to introduce yourself in your words.
Thank you, Anupam. Thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here on your platform and to share my thoughts with so many friends and colleagues of yours. I have lived most of my life in the United States. I'm a graduate of Cambridge University and also University of California, Los Angeles. I have a master's degree. I got that in 1970, so it's way beyond when most of you were born, I guess. And I've spent a very rich and wonderful life in America. I've come back to India to give back to my country. I found this field of emotional intelligence very interesting, very fascinating, very intriguing, and I didn't know anything about it. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I got involved in it. I started reading, I started meeting people, and slowly but surely got to know the subject matter. And then I realized that the problem in India essentially is that lack of education and awareness on the subject matter. People just People don't know what the value proposition is. And in fact, I was at a party the other day and somebody asked me, "Aap kya karte hain? What do you do?" And I said, "I'm involved in emotional intelligence." And they said, "Ye kya koi nayi bimari hai kya? Is this a new illness?" So I laughed at myself and I said, that is the challenge. And that is where I am devoting all my time, my energy these days. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting this. And sir, actually now you have already addressed and shared your educational journey and how you have been in California and England and then America. So throughout the world you have been roaming, and at the end कहते हैं ना, शाम को हम अपने घर को ही लौटते हैं. So you have come back to India. So you received your master's degree from the University of California at Los Angeles and an ISc diploma from Cambridge University, England. Now, I would request you to share few experiences of yours as a student of India and abroad. मतलब आप भारत में भी रहे, बाहर भी रहे और फिर वापस भारत आए. तो दोनों जगह के जो एकेडमिक्स हैं, उसमें क्या डिफरेंसेस आपको नजर आता है? दोनों में मतलब कैसा आपको लगा कि इंडिया में ये भी होता तो अच्छा होता?
Lovely question. Basically, जो Indian educational system है, it is a relic of the past. It is very structured. It is very, in fact, the curriculum also is ages old. I graduated from India from Harvard Butler Technical University with chemical engineering. Okay. I never wanted to do chemical engineering. My father said, no, this is the 60s now. My father said, no, it is the hottest field. You must do it. I did it, and I hated every minute of it. And as soon as I reached UCLA, I changed my major at the graduate level to information systems, computer systems.
Okay.
And I didn't tell my father that. I didn't dare to tell him that I had changed my major. Now, that is the flexibility of the two systems. In the US, you can change your major so long as you make up your prerequisites. If you don't like what you're doing, you can change that. Here, if you're in a particular field or a particular curriculum, it's very hard to change. So the beauty of the flexibility of the system, make it what the student wants, make it not what the academic people want, but what
Right.
what the student wants.
So, as you shared, sir, that you have worked as a senior management consultant with EY in Los Angeles, what is the best learning that you had in that experience?
It was trial by fire, working for a top consulting firm. You're not given much time to evaluate, to understand what is going on with the client, find out what the problem is, and suggest a solution like within days, whereas they've been grappling with the problem for months or years. So it is really a very, very high pressure environment, but a tremendous learning environment because you don't have time to look left or right. You're expected to provide some wonderful pearls of wisdom advice to the corporate executives who look at you. I was young, I was 25 years old, and they would look at me and say, "You're a senior consultant with Ernst. You better tell me something I don't already know." And it was scary. But then, I mean, these are big corporations, you know. And so, but you learn, like I said, with trial by fire, but you learn how to handle it. You learn how to ask the right questions really quickly without offending somebody. And then using that information to submit your report and your recommendations. It's a lot of fun if you can, but after many years, it was just too much pressure. You people working in the office on Christmas Day, can you believe it? Because they haven't had an
Right.
assignment complete that week.
So, like, this is brilliant that you have already explored so many things and you enjoy doing wherever you have gone. So, like you said, whether you were in doing chemical engineering and then you shifted to IT and then you became the senior. Then afterwards, I have learned about all your journey and then I was mesmerized. Oh my God, the present you are the director of Discover My Mind. So, how did you enter into the field of emotional intelligence coming from all the sort of technological background?
That's a very good question. And about 8 years or so ago, I decided to come back to India to utilize some of the technologies and learning that I had in these two fields. But I was ahead of my time. Now, today, solar and electric vehicles uh, is being talked about daily. At that time, when I came and tried to translate my technology and knowledge, the market was not ready for me. So I had a few business setbacks because I invested a lot of money. I set up a complete solar products marketing distribution company. And I also entered into for electric bicycles, a manufacturing agreement with Hero Motorcycles in India. But again, petrol was relatively cheap, and the market was not ready. So the project never really took off at that time. So I was looking for something to do, something that would utilize my active brain. And somebody said, "Why don't you look into emotional intelligence? I mean, it'll interest you." And I started doing that. And before you knew it, I got fascinated with it, and I couldn't, it just took consumed me totally. And I'm glad I did because today I think I'm a better person. I have better self-assessment of myself and what I want to do in life. So it was God given that that these things happen.
सो कितनी अजीब सी यात्रा है ना आपकी केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग से शुरू करके फिर आईटी में आए फिर वहां से आपने सीनियर मैनेजमेंट का काम संभाला फिर सोलर एनर्जी के ऊपर काम किया फिर इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स के ऊपर काम किया एंड सडनली नाउ यू आर इनटू द फील्ड ऑफ इमोशनल मैनेजमेंट so isn't
I
it
know.
strange like so much you have explored technology and let's come back to emotion and
They
inspire
call
the people around.
they call such people serial entrepreneurs. I think I can be classified as a serial entrepreneur.
So you're already an entrepreneur. Now you're talking about entrepreneurship of this mind game. So
Yes,
this emotional mindset that should be like commanded by ourselves. Like you are your master and you must know that. So why, like you said, people आपको पूछ के रहे थे कि यार ये इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस ये नया कहाँ से आया, क्या है ये? But yes, of course, in psychology, as I am also in the field of psychology, we know about what is emotion and how to work on emotions. लेकिन जो हमारे बंदे, इसलिए साइकोलॉजी के बारे में अवेयरनेस ही नहीं है. लोग साइकोलॉजी का डेफिनेशन ही गलत लेके रखे कि अगर किसी का दिमाग खराब हो गया मतलब वो पागल हो गया, पागल खाने में. हमारे यहाँ पहले कहते थे काके में डाल दो, रांची में है काके वहां डाल दो. So when you are visiting a psychiatrist or psychologist, that means you are mentally sick, and mental sickness means that you are mad, you are insane. But it is okay to be insane sometimes, no, to be childish and live your life, and that is emotional outburst. And I hope that is what you have told in your book, The Complete Guide of Emotional Intelligence. I myself read the whole book once and I have kept it aside so that whenever I have got like another time I will go ahead, because that book is not just, as I shared with you also, that it's not about just one thing you're talking about. You're talking about parenting, you're talking about teaching, and then you're talking about one's own identity. तुम अपने आप से शुरू करते हैं, फिर जिस प्रोफेशन में है उसमें किसी भी प्रोफेशन के बारे में आप बात करो. इवन इफ आई एम वर्किंग इन अ कॉर्पोरेट, there handling the emotion is very important, and how much you know how to handle the emotion, that much better you can handle the people, because this is all mind game, you know.
yes, yes. It's all mind game.
Yeah.
You will be interested to know that I have 16,000 plus connects on LinkedIn, and almost half of them are psychotherapists,
Yeah.
psychiatrists or psychologists, and every one of them is reaching out, wanting to know about emotional intelligence. The reason being that in their curriculum, 6-year PhD program,
Yeah,
very
there is no separate thing about emotional
very
intelligence.
little was taught to them, and that is an essential part of their counseling, is to know the ins and outs of emotional intelligence. So I'm glad that hey, I don't have a PhD in psychiatry, but certainly I'm able to hold my own with
Though
these.
your book, that The Complete Guide to Emotional Intelligence, is a kind of encyclopedia of all the emotions. So, like people who really want to know, they can get through it and they can actually find that what are all these emotions, how are they interlinked with our day-to-day activity. We talk about money. हमारे पास पैसा नहीं है, हम स्वस्थ नहीं है, हमारे मन में बुरे ख्याल आते हैं. So, for everything, the answer is just one: that
Yes,
emotion. How you are handling your emotions.
yes. Uh, Go ahead. Yes.
So how much time did you take to complete the whole book? Like you have written a kind of vast book, and in which I guess that you have done a lot of research from all over the world, whatever you have witnessed, that you have presented in the book. So how long did you take to complete the whole book?
My first book, it took about a year and a half, and I used to write from 12 midnight to 6 in the morning, because at that time it was quiet, the mind was at peace, and I could collect my thoughts. And I prepared a TOC, went down the TOC, and just item after item. And so it was my first attempt. You know, writing a book is not that difficult. I
Yeah.
found out that printing, publishing, and marketing it is where the problem is.
No.
I
Then I guess that you didn't get a good publisher. What might be difficult is to get it reach to the majority of the people. Sure कि आपने अपनी जीवन भर की जो उपलब्धि है, जो knowledge है, जो wisdom है, उस book में उकेरी है, क्योंकि that is really a kind of I have myself read it, and the way you have simplified, that is again an awesome thing that you have done. Because yes, of course, I am also a student of psychology, and we don't have that much of lessons about emotions and controlling emotions. We just see that this is emotion and you can work on this emotion, whether using psychotherapies or some sort of thing. But once we understand, like उसका बेस क्या है, कि आपको अपने इमोशन को जानना है कि how I am feeling now. If I'm feeling nervous, what is going on in my body? How can I identify? Just telling कि कहाँ हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है, you won't get it. There are many ailments for which there is no diagnosis at all. They don't find that where the ailment is, where the problem is. Maybe you can find it out with your own body feeling, like what emotions you are handling with, what you are not able to handle, and why you are getting such sort of outcomes. So that is again one thing. अभी जैसे आपने इससे चार चार किताबें लिखी हैं, पहली जैसे हमने भी बात की द कंप्लीट गाइड टू इंटेलिजेंस, उसके बाद आपने पेरेंटिंग विथ इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस लिखा है, द एक्सीडेंटल एडिक्ट है, द पावर ऑफ पॉजिटिव थिंकिंग है। तो ये चार बुक्स आपने लिखा है और अभी आपने बताया एक बुक ऑलरेडी प्रोसेस में है। तो इतने सारे बुक लिख रहे हैं, मतलब आप खुद भी बुक्स जरूर पढ़ते होंगे। सो आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट यू टू टेल अबाउट योर इंस्पिरेशन, जो बुक आप खुद पढ़ते हो, जिनसे इंसाइट लेने के बाद या जिसको पढ़ने के बाद आप ऐसी बातें लिख पाते हो या करते हो।
Well, I think it is self-feeding. एक बार आप एक किताब अगर आप लिखेंगे, तो writing a book is never a finished project.
Right.
Mind keeps thinking, oh, I forgot this. मैंने ये नहीं cover किया, मैंने वो नहीं cover किया, और नए thoughts, नए ideas आते जाते हैं. So I think that the beauty of book writing is, and you see, I mean, there are famous authors, J.K. Rowling and Stephen.
Right.
They've written 50, 60 books, within the space of like 10 years, 12 years. So it becomes a habit. I'll get up in the middle of the night, ekdam se ek thought aayegi about some chapter, and I'll get up and I'll start writing, or getting on the laptop. So it's hard to explain. But no, I have not been able to convey all my years of experience of my life into these books, maybe only a fraction of it. But no, it's been so rewarding. And the main thing is, when you write on subjects like this, there's a lot of learning about yourself. मुझे सबसे बड़ा gratification यही है. I know myself far better than I ever did before. And that is the beauty of work, the work that I've done.
तो जैसे मैं भी एक कवि हूँ, और जैसे आपने बताया कि रात को कभी आपकी नींद खुलती है और लगता है कि अभी लिखना चाहिए, तो मेरे साथ क्या होता था कि जब मैं ऑफिस जाती थी तो रास्ते में व्हाइल आई वाज वॉकिंग टू गेट माय ट्रेन और ऑटो व्हाटएवर, व्हेन आई वाज वॉकिंग, तो जो रास्ते में मैं जर्नी में होती थी, और जब ट्रेन में, आपको मुंबई लोकल का पता होगा कि इतना भीड़ होता है कि आप मूवमेंट भी नहीं कर सकते, एंड इन दैट आई हैड सम सॉर्ट ऑफ peculiar thought. And then I couldn't even take out my mobile to write it up. So somehow I couldn't retain it most of the time. But as soon as I got down from the train, I wrote it and then just tried to protect it. So हर किसी के मन का एक अलग तरह का होता होगा जिससे सबसे ज्यादा ख्याल आते होंगे. तो जब ऐसे ही आप जैसे बता रहे हो कि आपने खुद ही इतना अनुभव किया है, भारत से लेके कैलिफोर्निया, इंग्लैंड, अमेरिका, हर जगह से होते हुए जब आप वापस आए हो, तो आपके अंदर ऑलरेडी सब कुछ है, और वो सब कभी ना कभी आता होगा. जैसे मान लीजिए आपने बताया कि सो रहे हो या सोने जा रहे हो, तब अचानक अच्छा इसको लिख लेता हूँ मैं पहले. तो अगेन हर किसी के में होता है, क्योंकि मेरे कुछ स्टूडेंट्स भी हैं, पूछते हैं कि मेरे मन में ख्याल ना रेयरली आता है. रेयरली ऐसा नहीं होता है, हमारा जो आउटबर्स्ट होता है किसी एक मोमेंट में सबसे ज्यादा होता है.
तो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि a thought will come and a thought will go. अगर उसी समय उस थॉट को आप नहीं पकड़े तो वो चली गई. उसके बाद आप कितना भी ट्राई करो, अरे हम क्या सोच रहे थे, क्या मेरे मन में था. And in fact, I will say to you, if you ask me to rewrite any one of my books, I can't do it because it was based on thoughts that came at a certain point in time that I put down on paper. But after that, those thoughts went away. That is why you have to go to new thoughts. You have to go to new ideas and put it in a different way and extend your knowledge, extend your experiential knowledge to apply it more and more and more and go deeper and deeper and better.
That's brilliant, sir. And one more thing, sir, like जैसे आप बता रहे हो कि आपने भी बहुत सारे बुक्स पढ़े होंगे, बहुत सारे एक्सपीरियंसेस मिले हैं आपको, लेकिन इन सब के बाद भी ऐसा कोई इंस्पिरेशन जिसने आपको चौंका दिया हो और जिसको देख के आपको लगा हो कि यू मस्ट डू समथिंग न्यू, यू मस्ट डू समथिंग स्पेसिफिक, और आप उस राह पे चलते आए हो?
Well, the inspiration for my book वही था, because I saw so many parents, their child was unmanageable. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. And the child was not eating, sleeping, talking, hanging out with bad characters. So मुझे बड़ा दुख हुआ कि here is a parent that does not know how to manage the child. And the problem was that the only recourse, एक ही तरीका था, that is to take him to a psychiatrist. Now the psychiatrist is charging thousands of rupees an hour, plus they are dispensing medication, prescription drugs to solve a problem, let's say depression or anxiety or stress. And I felt that is needed only as a last resort, not as a first resort. If the parent does a profiling and assessment of their child, which I call emotional Janapatri, there are so many platforms available where you can know what is going on in the child's mind. These programs evaluate and assess the multiple intelligences of a child or also of an adult. So then, once you know what are the strengths and weaknesses, once you know where to pay attention to, then you can either do it yourself or if you go to for counseling, at least you know what the problem is. Currently, I hate to say this, but the doctors don't necessarily tell you what the problem is. They just say, oh,
Right.
I know, and here's the medication. These medications are very addictive, like homeopathy and allopathy. 95% of all the illness in the world can be solved by Ayurveda or homeopathy. It's only the cancer and some of the other things that can't be. So fine, go get surgery done. So my analogy is that emotional intelligence for mental health is the same as allopathy and homeopathy is for, as opposed to
Right.
allopathy.
Right, sir.
So that's the best analogy I can give.
Okay, right now we are talking a lot about emotional intelligence, but I would like to know about yourself, sir. Like when you have started working as a like solar energy, or you have started to work for electric motors, that you have started you did 20 years ago. Like right now we are being aware about such sort of things, but you started to work 20 years ago, and you said some time ago that your thoughts were always advanced in future pace. So what was that thing that made you to go ahead, and didn't you face any difficulty, any obstacle while working on that?
Well, I've always felt in my life that I want to do something that would benefit our country. I got into solar energy in the US in 1980. I set
Hmm.
up the most modern solar manufacturing plants in California at that time with the desire that someday my knowledge will be translated into a plant in India and we will manufacture solar products. But again, I was 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ahead of my time. My mother used to say to me, तुम हमेशा 20 साल आगे की सोचते हो, तुम आज की क्यों नहीं सोचते हो? And I didn't have an answer for her. But it's just, I don't know if foresight or whatever it is. Some people, I guess I'm gifted. God has gifted me that I can think and look ahead into the future and almost predict that this is going to be the next that challenge. And
Right.
so far, it's worked out that way.
That's brilliant, no? Amazing thing that you had and you worked in that manner. But again, sir, here there is this simple, silly question you can say, कि आप जब काम कर रहे थे and then suddenly stopped. So, like you were working on a great project, what made you to stop that thing and just change your direction?
No, I didn't stop working. Uh, oh, I know what happened. 1988, Reagan became president of America and he canceled all the solar tax credits. So
Okay.
the solar industry in America died. After 8 years building such a big company, all my customers basically went bankrupt and owed me a lot of money. So 1988, I had to shut that factory down in Los Angeles. Gasoline, petrol was selling for like 20 rupees a gallon in America. 20 rupees a gallon. Today it's 100 rupees a liter.
Yeah.
So, 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 so I didn't stop it voluntarily. I stopped because the environment changed. And today, you can imagine, with soon there will be no gasoline, petrol cars.
Right.
Within 15, 20 years, all cars will be electric worldwide.
Right.
So anyway, it's circumstance, happenstance. It happened. I I wish I knew better. I would have planned it a bit differently. I would have got involved in it now, not 20 years ago.
Right, right. So, like you had so many obstacles and problems in your life as well as it. So, any such sort of obstacle where you felt that ab aage nahi jaya jayega, that's the end, all the doors are shut down, and then you got your spirit back and moved ahead. So, any such situation that you would like to share with all our audience?
Yes, not once but several times, काफी बार हुआ जब ये सोलर वेंचर हमने यूएस में किया और जब रेगन ने टैक्स क्रेडिट्स खत्म कर दिए and the industry died and I was owed a lot of money by all my customers. And, you know, you should have seen a grown man cry. I didn't know what to do. The lesson to be learned from all failures is that you cannot give up, you cannot give in. You have to get up and start again. I cannot stress that enough because at that time I felt like my whole world had collapsed around me. A lot of my investment, everything had gone into that. But yet I said no. There will be a day again when this will come back, and I got into alternative businesses. And so that is my only advice to everybody, and it's common advice. It's just never give up, never give up. Just if you and whatever you do in life, believe in it. If you don't believe in it, don't do it. So many people on the phone say, Mr. Agarwal, your passion is is obvious on the phone because whatever you say it with total conviction. You have total uh, determination to see your project through.
That's brilliant. And
थोड़ा सा इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस पे जरा से मैं डिस्कस करना चाहता हूँ
जी,
कि what is an emotion?
yeah,
After all, what is an emotion?
it's just whatever we can feel, whatever we have in our heart, that sensation after any of the incident.
Hey, let me
Yes, sir.
try.
Please, sir. Yeah.
A feeling becomes a thought, becomes an emotion, causing an action which results in a reaction.
Okay.
स्ट्रेट लाइन फंक्शन एक फीलिंग है
जी.
वो एक थॉट में कन्वर्ट हो गई
Hmm.
उससे एक इमोशन जनरेट हुआ खुशी का नेगेटिव इमोशन पॉजिटिव इमोशन
Yeah.
उसके बेसिस में आपने कुछ कहा या किया करेक्ट यू
Yeah.
सेड समथिंग और यू डिड समथिंग that then results in an action which then causes a reaction the other person will either say something or do something correct.
Hmm.
So this is the flow of emotions. Also, I must stress here while we're on the subject. आजकल जो है depression, anxiety, stress, tension, this is the norm. And all these syndromes, all these ADHD and ATD and all these are all the result of depression. Now, why do we get depressed? That is because our emotions, our negative emotions, have taken over our thinking. And so that is why, and so in order to solve most mental health problems leading to these things that I just mentioned, we have to go one step above, two steps, 10 steps above, and understand the value of emotional intelligence. What is it? What are the benefits of learning, improving your emotional intelligence? How do you apply it in day-to-day life? So that is very important. And whatever my books, whatever I speak, I'm an author, like you said, and a speaker. I'm conducting Zoom sessions daily across the country. And people are reaching out because, and particularly psychotherapists, which is surprising, they're saying, Agarwal, I'd like to know more about emotional intelligence because I'm going to use your book and your training to do better counseling for my patients. So surprising, it's really surprising. So that is an area that the next time that we talk, we'll talk more about the fundamentals of emotional intelligence. I don't know how much time you have, but I'd like to talk more if there is time.
Yeah, this emotional intelligence is a kind of very vast thing. Actually, we talk about so much of IT and sort of AT, artificial intelligence, and all, that we have somehow ignored emotional intelligence for so long. But right now, people have started to realize that how much it is important for an individual well-being, not just individual, social well-being, not just social, professional well-being. So whatever well-being we are going to talk about, this emotional intelligence is the key. And very well, like you have stated, I noted it down, like feeling becomes a thought, thought becomes an intention, and that becomes an action which causes a reaction. So how we can, like we are always worried, उसने मेरे साथ ऐसा किया, क्यों किया? So in NLP, like we have learned, none of the intentions are wrong. जो लोग terrorist हैं and they are using the guns or the bombs to shoot, their intention is right. According to them, what they are doing is right. But they are not bothered. They don't think about the reaction. Their intention with that action, what would be the reaction? How many innocent people will be killed because of that? So they don't think about that. They don't calculate the whole thing. So along with that intention, we have to think about our reaction. So that's again a very well, he has his first mentor who can talk about emotional intelligence. And yes, of course, sir, whatever you can share at the end about emotional intelligence and about your programs, what you do in your programs, how do you take sessions and then like enrich people to deal with their identical, social, or professional problems.
Sure. You know, most people don't know that your intelligence quotient, IQ, remains constant all your life. It is your emotional quotient, EQ, that grows exponentially. People say, well, you know, I got this 6-year PhD in psychiatry. I must be smarter than I was before.
Right.
And I said, no, you're still only as smart as you were when you were born. Say, oh, you mean I'm not smarter after doing a 6-year PhD degree? I said, no, your IQ remains the same. And they said, oh, then why did I take this? You see, so what people, the common misconception is that your IQ, you get more intelligent the more you study or the more you experience things. No, it is your EQ, your emotional quotient. As you grow from, in fact, the latest fancy courses are for post-birth emotional intelligence courses. Babies, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So that's where it starts. Did you know Andre Agassi, world famous tennis player, what his parents did? In his crib, when he was 1 year old, they tied a tennis ball on a string across his crib, and they would tap the ball, and he would learn, his eyesight would learn how to follow the ball. And that is how he became one of the best tennis players in the world. So it starts very young. It starts just after you were born. So that's the one thing I want to stress. And today, you know, in schools and colleges, it's kitne marks, kitne grades. That is all, you know. People don't realize that a child can never be academically successful if the child is not emotionally healthy. This concept is what is my driving force. I want everybody to know that you cannot be successful if you're not emotionally healthy.
Right.
So that's that's kind of my motto.
So you cannot be successful if you're not emotionally healthy. So thank you so much for this brilliant session, and I would thank you once again with filled with this gratitude. And I hope that all the listeners who are listening to you right now will be benefited. And if they require, they can visit you on www.discovermymind.com. So thank you so much, sir.
Yes. Discovermymind.com. All the information about the books, about the programs, about the Zoom sessions, everything is there. My name is Vasant Agarwal. I want to thank you all so much for giving me the time today.
Thank you so much.